Thank you, Mr. Chair, for holding this extremely important meeting. Thank you, Ms. Nord, for being here with us today. If my information is correct, we were talking about unintended consequences. If my information is correct, all but one member of the House of Representatives voted for this legislation. So I'd have to assume that minus Dr. Paul, we all didn't have the intended consequence of hamstringing small business and large business, as a matter of fact. I know that it wasn't directly after this vote that I went home and met with folks in my district from shoe distributors that were concerned that children were going to be chewing on their parents' shoes, from a sporting goods company that made foosball tables that the little men on the foosball table were afraid the 2-year-old was going to crawl up there and chew on the foosball men, and many other examples of that. That's not the intended consequence of this legislation. Like you said, everyone wants to protect our children, but we have hamstringed many businesses. One of the things that concerns me, Ms. Nord, is what you said early, and it seems to be rampant here, is that we implemented this legislation and gave you no time to train. And I applaud you for doing the plain English explanation, because that's another thing I hear a lot about, is that when people deal with the federal government, our regulations, it is in less than understandable terms. So I appreciate that. Yeah, I'd like you at some point to look at House Bill 1465. We filed that in March. Look at that, if you would, and see if that answers some of the questions and concerns. We filed that with the help of the NFIB to address some of these concerns, and I would encourage the members of the committee, if they haven't looked at that already, to look at that. It has not received a hearing, but we hope to forward that. What are some of the things, again, in plain English, if I can speak plain English, that you're hearing from small businesses and large businesses? Just bullet point the biggest concerns and how we might rectify that. And if it's top 3, top 5, whatever you think you can do.
The top thing that we hear is the rather perverse effect of the retroactivity provisions, which renders existing inventory illegal. And we are then forcing people to either destroy inventory, test to determine what its contents are, or violate the law. And I think that is just, you shouldn't be putting business people in that position. Secondly, the law does not really give us the flexibility to respond to real-world situations and real-world problems that we are hearing. Our flexibility was removed. We asked for example, certification and testing authority, but what we got was something that was so constricted that we really don't have the ability to move within the provisions of the law to structure something that makes sense for the business sellers and small business people in this country. So more flexibility needs to be given. I think if you address those two things, as well as several of the other things that are in my written statement, you can have a law that really carries forward the principles that you wanted when you passed the CPSIA and that the agency wants. Our mission is to protect consumers. That's what we're about. But we don't want to be putting people out of business for selling water wings with excess amounts of lead when we all know that nobody is getting lead poisoning from swimming in a pool with water wings, or bicycle tire valves that have excess amounts of lead, excess above the law limits, but where nobody is getting lead poisoning by filling their bicycle tires with air. I mean, these things are preposterous. The law shouldn't operate in that way. And I think if Congress would give us back the flexibility that was removed from the expert agency here, we could craft this in a way that makes some sense. And I'd like to work with you on your legislation.
That'd be great. And could you touch on, as briefly, I know they're going to get down to that where we can run over there in a few minutes. They may hold it open just a little bit longer than 15 minutes. I've seen that done. Touch on the secondhand shops, I guess the chain, when we're going to secondhand shops, flea markets. If you could touch on that and the implications there. as it goes down the chain, what your views are on that.
Yeah. The secondhand shops, charity shops, provide such a value to our society, especially right now. And they have been impacted by this law in a rather unique way. And again, it's because of the retroactive effect, making it illegal to sell things that don't meet the lead limits, as opposed to manufacturing products after the effective date that don't meet the lead limits. So you've got charities and thrift shops that bring in unique products. They don't have any way of knowing if those products have lead or phthalates. We've given some guidance, but it has to necessarily be general guidance. But so they are in the really unfortunate position of either having to decline to sell these things, remove them from inventory and destroy them, or take their chances and possibly break the law. And we are talking about useful products. We're talking about children's clothing. Nobody has ever brought to my attention a child being poisoned by wearing a pair of kids' dungarees with a metal zipper, or wearing a shirt with a pearlized button. These things may have more than 300 parts per million of lead, but they don't necessarily pose a risk of injury. And we have put resellers at legal risk because of the retroactive effects of the law.
Thank you.
And I just think that's wrong.
Let me cut it right there.